and it's Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 163 for August 10th, 2023. My name's John Kelsey. I'll be the moderator. And in a quick commercial to any YouTubers who are on here, if you want to join Coffee Hour, it's free and open to all woodturners. You go to the club website, lancasterareawoodturners.org, and leave us your email address in the comments panel down. You'll find it down the right-hand side. And we'll add your email to the list. We send out one email a week with last week's video and the invitation for this week's Zoom. And here's a secret about the Zoom invitation. It's the same every week. It's been the same every week for years now. So you don't have to find the current email. You could just find any old email and you're in. Let's see, it's show and tell today. I see a bunch of hands up and I have some stuff I'll talk about too. But let's do the dudes. Bowman got short sheeted last couple of weeks. I held him till the end and cut him off before he got started. So let's start with you today, Bowman. What would you like to show us and talk about?
Well, I have a number of things since it's been a couple weeks. Hang on a sec. Okay, share screen. This is always fun. Getting to Don, now you'll see whether I do it right or not, you know. I took some sassafras and glued it up hang on. Gotta get my carrots the right way. I glued it up, rotating the grain like that. And then I dyed it. And that's what I had. It was kind of fun. Magenta dye has become my favorite color of late. Since I've been trying to
Jim,
learn
what was
here.
your finish on that?
Lacquer. It was lacquer.
Okay.
Lacquer over dye. Okay.
Lacquer over dye. And generally, I think I spray a coat of shellac before I start the lacquer. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I do. By the way, so while I was on sassafras, I said, hey, what the heck? I'm going to make a platter of it. And then I had one of my wife's pottery fairy houses and made a settings in the middle. But I was so excited and pleased, and Toby would probably go, Jim, that's routine. But it just turned out lovely. I did the yellow up the middle, rubbed some blue in from the side, smoothed it over with some alcohol. So I was just pleased.
You're deliberately trying to be subtle there rather than loud like a lot of.
I was, and
I'm appreciating that.
Subtle for me is difficult, but here's what the final product kind of looked like.
Hold still now. Quit moving it around.
Yeah, it's my wife's fairy garden pottery thing in the middle. And she kind of looked at me funny. Well, why'd you do that? I don't know. I just need an excuse to color the platter with it. And I put magenta on the very edge, as you might notice. So
did you find it easy to control where the dye went, or did it want to run into the adjacent surfaces, or how do you do that?
Actually, I learned on that one. I used a brush to apply it so I could control it more. I could paint it up and down. I used to use a cloth or a tissue, but that tends to be a little smearier. John, I guess the answer is I think it was fairly controllable. I felt that way. Yeah.
I don't see Toby on today. He's the expert, of course.
Yeah, I know. So I should have waited till the expert was on, but I was so delighted when I got that. Sorry, guys, but that was my fun. Okay, jumping ahead here. Okay, here's my fun mulberry right here.
Hold still. Stop sliding.
I know. John, I'm in my big folder and I'm just jumping ahead. Okay. Should be there now. Yeah. Mulberry that was cut down literally a couple of houses from it was a monster tree, had been here for years. And let me go back. I'll try to go slow, John, so I don't make you. There's what the top looks like. I put a cherry ring around the top and a walnut foot on the bottom. And I dropped in one of you get these from PSI. I don't know what they're made for, but they fit nicely my 2.5-inch top. And I guess if somebody says, what's it for? Well, stick flowers down in there if you want.
The mulberry I get around here is very much yellower than that, with very pronounced grain. It looks more like Osage. Is this? Are you sure that's mulberry?
Definitely, very definitely.
Our
Yeah.
mulberry is very yellow too, but I think there are multiple varieties in the area, John.
Must be so.
And I think the finish is helpful too. And you're going to ask me what I put on it. I bet it has lacquer on it too. I don't know.
Mulberry, the mulberry I've seen darkens quite a bit after it's been cut. It almost goes down to a deep red. Are you expecting that to darken, Jim?
I'm hoping not, and it hasn't yet. This is a couple weeks ago because I did this a month or so ago. So you guys think this might not be mulberry? I would swear that tree was mulberry. I live right by it. So
Just saying that it doesn't look like any more. I have a lot of it in my yard, and it comes down, and I use it. I like it. I turn it a lot.
You know, I should go check. We had a mulberry back on the homestead that we cut down, and I machined it out, lumbered it out. I should go check in the shop in the drying rack.
Doesn't
All
look
right.
like it has enough open grain.
That's
Yeah.
just what I was thinking. The grain in mulberry is kind of like an ash open.
Exactly.
So are you saying that's affirmation for mulberry?
No,
No.
Oh,
we're
Well-
saying this isn't mulberry.
Okay.
no mulberry.
But I
I've
mean,
ever seen.
it's moronic to try and identify wood on the video from a digital photograph. I mean, there's been a lot of changes to the image since it actually became an image.
By the way, guys, remember I talked the other week about ring light? Well, I used a ring light on this one. You can see it. You can see the ring reflection on the
Oh, I
top
see.
there.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like about the ring light. So anyways, let's move on some.
Anyway, it's a nice shape. Let's not lose sight of the fact that it's a real nice shape, whatever the wood is.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And
I-
Jim,
yeah.
if you have a piece in your wood file, your firewood pile with the bark on it, it would be really neat to bring that and show it up so we could do some more debate on identification.
I have a lot more of the mulberry blanks here. I'm sure I do. I'll go look. That's a good idea, Doug. Sorry. Here, how about a crotch with all kinds of things hanging out of it? So this is what you get when you split that open. It took me a day or two and a little conversation with Doug away which way to cut open that. It had two big side things. Well, anyways, I went that way for it.
What
And
are you saying this is?
Cherry. It's cherry. Let me jump ahead. Here's a bowl out of it.
That's pretty.
Yeah, I was quite excited.
That's quite thick at the bottom too, isn't it?
Yeah, I knew somebody would say that. Let
Well,
me
it's
see if
not
I
a-
get a pro.
That's a notice. I'm just noticing that. It's not a criticism.
Well, so I'm sorry I'm jumping, John. I want to see if I have a profile to show you. I can't believe I don't have a profile in here, but I was just excited. It was a mixture of feathering and knots, and I ended up giving it to the lady whose tree it came off of. She was so excited.
Now, how dry is that? And do you think it's going to split from one of those fifths?
It's less than might be 2 weeks. No, it is. Did I microwave this one a little bit sometimes? Well, here's a profile.
There's your profile. That's what made me think it was thick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And John, you can see, I think I microwaved this one a bit because it's already buckling. You see it?
Yeah.
It's turning up. And I don't know, I always am delighted when my pieces have a little bark on the edge. It's almost a trademark for me. So anyways, let's move on. There's got a couple other, I'm sorry, John, I'm jumping quick here. That's when I was turning it on the lathe. I keep my chainsaw handy to knock off the out of balance stuff, which is what's happening. Now, this is one piece, just to let you know, is the burl that the arborist around here who treats me very well says, I got a burl for you. And so I just had to throw it up on the lathe and go to it.
How big is that?
I knew you were going to ask. About 13 inches tall, 5 inches wide.
That changes the completely. When I saw the picture, I thought, oh, that's little, like the mouthpiece of a trumpet.
No, I could run down and get it. It's still
No,
here.
okay.
13 by 5, as I recall. So, yeah. This is what I did at the top, and just a little detail to show some of the grain. You guys know burl grain, like here. It's now, obviously this was a very wet piece because it came straight off the tree. That's the bottom. And here's how it looks from the bottom. I try to give a perspective view from the bottom end. And I was trying to be smart. Here's it turn. This is it. I'm going to back up one, John, here. This is turning it on the lathe, and this is what I was seeing as I was turning it. One more here.
You're using one of those carbide cup tools on that, looks like.
I may well have on that one.
It looked like in the other picture.
But the one thing which a lot of guys talk about, and I finally listened, when you have a burl, they're never centered right. They're always lopsided. So I kept moving it by center to get the most wood, you know what I mean? So I have it as round as I could with the burl, and it worked pretty good. So I learned a lesson. That's always what's important. There, John, you think you're seeing some of my...
I think I'm seeing that carbide. That's one of those little cups that we've been talking about.
I use the mate tool a lot. I've been trying the 12-inch one, the 12 millimeter one that Kai introduces to, but it's not as good as Jimmy Clue's mate tool. Okay, I haven't finished this. This is just to illustrate something. This is my outrigger, and I was trying to smooth the back of this big chunk of walnut, which is in my drying rack right now. And I said, if I could get the outrigger to reach over, well, this is my tool that would get the closest. But in the meantime, I ordered a Rikon banjo extender. And so I can't wait to get it so I can cut on the back without having to flip it around. Just dumb ideas. Shall I confess now or later? This is a funnel repair. A cherry. That's the bottom. I had this all finished beautifully, and it hopped out of my coal chuck and took a nick on the ways. And so I said, okay, I dove off the deep end and went into a segment turning. My very first segment glue up and glue on. Doug, I think I did pretty good. What do you think?
I agree with you about how good it was. And that's why I said you're going down another rabbit hole, because as soon as you do one really nice, then you figure there's only, well, what would it look like with 2 layers, guys? And then 3 layers.
Well, Doug, already I've said the next piece is going to have segmented on the bottom. Hey, by the way, shape on this one.
Dog dish.
What do you think?
Dog dish.
Oh, shoot. My daughter gave me a crooked look of it. She didn't like it. I love that. By the way, you know how you can hold them on the coal chuck without them bouncing off? Buy rubber bottle stoppers, because then the wide top will grab it right here and hold it. I haven't lost it off the coal chuck ever since.
You can also put washers and longer screws in the coal chuck to extend the plugs outward.
Yeah, I have all kinds of lengths of them, but boy, that's the one that worked.
I'm sorry I said dog dish. It's not. It's much nicer than that. That's an interesting shape.
Don't apologize, John. That's fine.
Kind of a sandbag look,
Yeah.
Jim, I wanted to comment about the banjo extender.
Yes.
That's not unique to Rikon. They've been available on the Chinese lathes for years. Busy Bee, Harbor Freight, etc. You want to be very cautious with them. They have a really bad habit of cracking too when you have a catch.
Well, I would suspect that, because I figured what I need. I went looking. What I needed is something comes over 4 inches and then goes 6 inches in. So the angle is the wrong angle for any modified. Everybody has different types of tool rest, but none with that angle. And I thought, well, I have to give up on it. And then I saw this Rikon extender and I said, that's going to give me a 4-inch reach. But you're right. I'll have to be very careful. Or
Look at the large J rest from Robust. I think that might be long enough to solve it for you as well.
Robust. Okay.
Robust has two sizes of J-shaped rests for getting into bowls. One's about, I don't know, 8 inches, and the other's about 13 or 13 inches, I think.
I may go back and look at that because I just bought a bigger one of those. What do you call them? J? They have a J on each side. Anyway, so
Yeah, I would call that one an S rest, but never mind. Anyway, that's the same.
that's an S rest.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Jim, just a question on that banjo. I mean, why don't you take your piece of wood off the lathe, slide your banjo over right beside the headstock, and then put it back on again, so you can reverse the banjo on your lathe there.
Doug, that's precisely what I'm trying to avoid, because this is big enough. It's a 15-inch on a 16-inch lathe, and I don't want to keep removing all the time. And that's a heavy chunk of wood.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but just from my perspective, with that size of piece, what you're going to get down to almost the finished shape on the inside, so you only need to do it once.
Well, here's the other issue. I wanted to core out a chunk from it too. So yeah. I don't know. I just keep fiddling around and getting in these corners, I guess. But
so Jim, you have a 15-inch bowl on a spur center there. Is that what you're doing?
I did exactly.
Yeah, that's a little bit scary.
Here's what I do, Bruce. I do a trick I learned from Doug, actually. I drill a forcer bit hole down in so that the spur is actually within the bowl. So never bounced off for me. So
I've done bigger than that on spur. Jim, I'd like to make a comment about your vase composition. I think you had a great vase until you start putting all those squiggly things down near the bottom of it. Those pictures you showed of it turning, that to me is where I would have stopped, on the outside.
On the outside,
yeah,
of the burl you're talking. Yeah, I know. I was getting rid of too much of the bark, I guess. Is that what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
I was going too deep.
Yeah.
I learned something too. Boy, those burls move around. A day later, I said to myself, that's got a real rough edge there. You know, if you rub your hand across it, it already moved. And I said, I'm going to fix that. So I put it back on the lathe and I CA glued it and then sanded it smooth again. Well, the next day it just nicely broke the CA glue off. So I had to grind it all out and sand it over again. So I'm just going to let it go this time. So
one of the things you might consider on your lathe is just get a second second banjo. I put a second banjo on my lathe and I use it all the time for exactly that reason. I can get to the backside of something.
Yeah.
And having a second banjo is just really, really, I didn't realize how handy it was until I had one. Stu Bremner has 2 banjos on his lathe, and that's where I got the idea. It's just amazing how many times you use the second banjo if you've got it.
Also, that would be a real help in dealing with long spindles and shop made tool rests. You can span them between the 2 banjos.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I hadn't thought about getting the second banjo and just leaving it up at the headstock end, and that's a great idea.
I think that's the best answer. Have you got more to go, or are you done now?
Nope, I got my month's
okay.
shown. So
good morning, Bill Tat. What do you have today?
Okay, what I have here, and I'll hold it slow, or can you see? There's glare.
Yes.
Wow.
You see those PWAs in there? Bow ties.
You got a couple of butterflies in there. And
there's
whatever you call them.
Fantastic grain there.
Yeah, there's 9 of those butterflies in this.
I'd like to know how he cuts them, or how they cut them.
Okay.
How do you cut those, Bill? How do you cut the bow ties into the side wall of the
Well, what I will do, I'll have a presentation where I'll share my pictures on how I did this, but I have to give this bowl away this week. This is a witness tree at a school playground, and this is for the principal who's retiring. And I was asked in June, one of the administrators brought me, they had to cut the tree down. It was in the playground area, an old tree. And he brought me a piece from the base of the tree, and it was all full of wind shakes. And it was and I have pictures of it, trying to cut this out of it, but it actually, this is the side of the tree. It was difficult. It was a big piece of wood full of shakes. I had a flyer that flew when I was hollowing, and
what kind of wood are you saying that is?
This is oak. I don't know what type.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was full of defects. And if you notice, I had to try to find the best piece of wood to make something, and you'll see in my cutting of it. I have some pictures that I'll put in a Zoom session. But what I wanted to do was to preserve the bark on there, and you see this is thicker than I ever would turn, but the bark was very tall. You know, it's a thick bark, old bark, and they cut it down I think late spring, and the administrator brought it over to me and asked me if I would do something for an August retirement for the principal. But
on the side there, we come on back to the side where you just had it. Okay, there. What do you think those white lines are? Are those ray cells? Is that what we're seeing there? What would be ray flex?
I think so. This was at the base of a tree, and there's all kind of stress going on in there, you know, and the tree resists it. But it's I had a devil of a time. Like I say, I had a flyer where I was hollowing the center, and I heard a quick crack, and the thing flew. And that chicken cage that I keep on my Powermatic, I was at the end. It wasn't going to get me, but I'll tell you, it flew out of there with force. I mean, but so then I decided to, well, it's after the fact, to put tape on, duct tape. And, you know, when I'm hollowing the center, I would have the outside shape, but do the inside, I would duct tape the outside to give it a little more. And then I watched with CA glue and was a little closely more inspecting the defects. When you're turning, you know, something with defects in it, you really, really have to be careful. But this is,
nice work.
These are Piwa, and Jim, when I will do those presentations. I will learn to share.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I will go over.
Yeah, I want to do some bow ties, but I'm always scared to tackle them. You know, it's like, how do you do it?
There are a couple tricks that they don't tell you. You know, I mean, you don't get instructions. You have to, you know, feel your way through this. You know, how to hold the template on a curved surface, and I'll go into that. I have pictures and you know how I did that, but I just wanted to show you now the live piece that will go this week. He's going to have a retirement, I guess, before they start school again. But
okay, to finish up the discussion, what's the finish on there?
No, the finish was I didn't know what to do. I used the English Milan's sanding sealer. I had a number of coats and sanded, and that acts like as a filler. And what I did, I polished with Tripoli, you know, in the end, and then I used that nice wax that you can buy. I forget the name of it, but they use it in, it's an English wax.
Okay,
Violence.
But it turned out nice. I'm hoping it's durable. But the thing is, what worried me about this is he brought it over, it was wet and was full of shakes. Well, normally I like to let them warp, dry, and I didn't have time. So I had to,
that's gonna
you know,
move
had
around
to-
on you. That's gonna do some moving around, that's for sure.
yeah, I think it's going more oblong now. I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
it there,
it looks
but
like it. It looks like it's squished
yeah,
this way. Yeah,
But
yeah, I
Bill,
was, what?
yeah, it's a memory piece. So it's
Yes.
not like you're not gonna put salad in that. So if it moves
No,
around,
no,
it's
no.
history.
Yeah,
That's just history.
I'm giving it to them as, and I do it before, as a witness tree, you know, in
Oh.
other words, it
yeah.
witnessed their careers and so, but that's what it is.
Thank you,
Very
Bill.
nice.
All right,
Any
you
more
bet.
comments for Bill? Comments or questions? Okay. Roger, we haven't heard from you in a while either. What do you like to show today?
I've got a few pieces, John, that I thought I'd share with you guys because it has been a little while. So let me see if I can pull this up. Okay, this first piece, our President's Challenge for July was to turn something related to Independence Day. So this is my version of the Liberty Bell. Obviously, it's cherry and walnut. Overall, it's about 11 inches tall or so. The base is about 10 inches wide. The bell itself is probably about 7.5 by 5.5 at the widest. But that's my version of a Liberty Bell.
That's nice. Now, what's the frame up at the top? Is that like distressed or is that wood? Are those nicks that were in the wood? What's going on there?
Those are man-made nicks. And
Okay.
I used a propane torch to burn it just a little bit to try to give an effect that I got pretty close to what I was looking for.
Did you model this after photos of the actual Liberty Bell or did you kind of invent some of these details?
No, I looked at a number of pictures of the Liberty Bell and came up with my version based on what I saw in the pictures.
And does yours ring?
What's that?
Does it ring?
How did you put the crack in?
What was that?
How did you put in the crack?
Oh, well, first I drew it with a pencil and then I took a pyrography burner with a spew tip on it and kind of burnt a groove in it. And then I took a very small Dremel tool bit and carved it all the way through. So by having that burnt crevice in there, that allowed me to follow it real close and it came out okay.
Nice work.
So, okay, this next one is a piece of oak that I had around here. It's not real large. It's about 8 inches, I guess, in diameter, but I did that texturing and a little coloring on it, but I used a cutoff tool for a Dremel tool to do that carving on it. And that's the first one of these that I have done, but for me, it came out okay. So anyway, then I've got another platter here out of maple that I recently turned. Obviously the beads, and these are actually burnt in there again with my pyrography burner and a ball tip. So just to give it a little more effect, but that's probably about 11 inches in diameter.
And how thick?
Oh, at the rim, it's probably 3/16 of an inch or so.
No, I mean the blank. Is that like how thick was the blank? How deep is the bowl itself or the platter?
The thickness of the blank, probably about an inch.
Okay.
By the way, how'd you make the bead? What tool did you use?
I have I think it's a Carter and Sons beading tool that I used.
Okay.
I really like the way you've done those, the burning on that. It really is a little bit understated, but I think it enhances your platter immensely.
No, thanks. You know, the more I'm getting into doing some of these different embellishments, the more I'm finding that I can do with a burning tool, a pyrography burner that really can add. I've got another platter I don't have a picture of that I put actually diamonds like here and here, and it really gave it a neat effect. And that was out of a piece of rock maple and came out pretty good. I don't have that picture with me now.
I've seen a lot of places where people are inclined to burn the entire ring and do all sorts of patterns and stuff, but this is really understated, and I think the understatement in this particular case actually adds to it as opposed to take away from it.
Good, thank you. And the last piece I've got to show you guys is just our President's Challenge for this month is a keepsake box. So this is my version, obviously a segmented walnut. And then what I did on the top is I inserted that piece of maple, and you can see that top maple is inserted in there. So it didn't come out too bad.
Go back, yeah, there, okay. So that big rim is part of the lid, not part of the box?
That is correct. This is part of the lid. Yep.
I read that as part of the box with the maple lid sitting down on it and as an overset top.
No, it's inserted. This is part of the lid.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
Okay, that's all I've got.
Did you turn that as all one segmented thing and then separate it and put the lid on it? The
No, I
maple?
did not. No, I did not. This was done separate.
Okay.
And what do you,
Obviously the same board, but no, it was done separate.
and how do you flatten, what are you doing to flatten each ring?
I use a belt sander to get it flat, and then I'll glue the ring on. And then usually what I'll do is I've got that mounted in a chuck that I'll flatten it then on the lathe for the next layer to go on it.
And how do you do that?
So I'll use a gouge, to do a cut, but then I'll use I've got a piece of sandpaper on a board that's probably 8 inches wide and a foot long, and I put that up against it to make sure I get it good and flat.
Okay. Any other questions for Roger?
Okay, thanks, John.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Let's end your share if you can do it. There, we got it. Okay. Dawn, how about you today?
Well, I've tried this already, as Jim will say, so I'm going to go into share. A few weeks ago, I mentioned that the club went to a wood show. It's in 9 acres of farmland, and this was the stall that the club made up of all club members' work. I thought I'd just show you so you can see what happens. I'm going to come in on this side, on the bottom here. This is the beginner's side, going up from year 1, year 2, up to year 3, from beginning of the club. And it's quite nice to see some of that work. And then over the other side, in the middle here, you've got some of the top turners we have. This is a chap called John Wyatt, and he does this type of work based on Stuart Mortimer. I expect you've all heard of Stuart Mortimer over here in England. He does all of this type of work, and that is some of John's work. Coming down, this is some of the bigger stuff. And then across here, you've got a couple of monkey puzzle trees. This monkey puzzle is rather interesting because I believe Jim mentioned that there's a tree over there roughly the same. All these knots that you can see on the outside here are actually in a complete circle around the trunk of the tree as it grows. And as it grows, each layer of boughs coming out are actually in a circle around that tree. So it gives a very good design. Now this one is actually 15 inches diameter and it's 5mm thick, the whole of the bowl with a finial on it. And this is another one.
Who made that? Are those yours or somebody else's?
No, this is somebody else's. This is what another club member. He's been turning for 5 years. And he's a friend of the chap who did this stuff up here, you know, now this one's an interesting one. This is a balanced piece with a donut. And if you can see, ignore the piece behind, but there is a glass file goes down for a bud vase and it's balanced with the donut and the angle of this piece here. That's my piece there. You probably recognize it from a few months back, but I thought I'd just show you.
Yeah, Don, back up just a little so it's not so pixelated. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Now, what's the Forest of Beer?
Sorry, John, I missed that.
What's the Forest of Beer?
That's the club name. The Forest of Beer used to be a big forest that ran down just west of where I live now. And it went from the Solent, which is on the south coast, right up through a town, Petersfield and beyond, and it's massive forest. Most of it's gone now, but there's still places. And when we started the club, we actually started in the Forest of Beer. So we've kept the name, although we've moved 3 times. But that,
hey, I see another monkey puzzle piece about right above the other two. Is there one right? Yeah. That one, is that a monkey puzzle?
Yeah, okay. That's a monkey puzzle. That's a monkey puzzle vase.
Would you think that's the same as Norfolk Island pine?
Somebody said that, John. I'm not sure who said that earlier.
Yes, somebody said it when I tried to see if I could work the chair.
I'm not sure if that's true. There may be related trees. I just don't know.
What'd you call it? Norfolk pine?
Norfolk Island pine.
Island pine. Okay.
Norfolk Island pine. Yeah.
What type of leaf has it got on it, John? Because these are like spikes from a.
Yeah, I think it's sharp, spiky things like little triangles.
Yeah, and
I suspect it's
a monkey puzzle because it's only monkeys that climb up it. But there's 1 or 2 more right on the top there, which I can't. If you can see them at the top, and this was one of the wives of one of the other members who makes clocks. But I'll just show you the field that we were in. That was the arena of this 9-acre field. And in the middle here is a totem pole, if you like, but it's a big tree trunk being put into the ground for the axemen to go up and show how they climb up there and take the top of a tree off. But that's all I've got to show you. But I thought I'd just show you the type of stuff that the club members make over here.
very, very impressive work. Thank you very much.
Okay. And one last thing, Jim, those lids you use on those potpourri pots, what you would call them over here, is pewter.
Ah.
Yeah, I think that would be
it's
right.
Chinese pewter then, because I came from PSI, Penn State Industries. I just happened to have them around. So
yeah, used to buy them a lot from craft supplies.
Oh, okay.
Jim shows that monkey puzzle and Norfolk pine are 2 different varieties of trees.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Don.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Randy.
I just have something for Jim. This is a angled tool rest that I got some time ago at one of the symposiums in Lancaster. The vendor was called South or Southern something or other, and
that's the sort of thing. That's what I'm talking about too. Yeah.
Yeah, they make 3 different sizes of this. This is the medium size. The bigger size was like that big, and I just needed a medium sized one.
Is that
It
threaded
has a,
in? It's
it has
threaded
a
in,
threaded
right?
insert, and so you can just unthread it and thread it.
I'm-
Some people say that they don't like that, but I've never had a problem with the ones that I have. And
That's
that's an option.
that's a Robert Sorby system, I think. I saw them.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm not sure. What I actually wanted to show was this. We had our meeting last month. Bill Gray showed a highly segmented, open segmented bowl. And I don't know how many pieces. This is the one that he made or was working on during the demonstration last month.
Now, tell us the size of that too.
This is probably about 12 inches across and probably about 8 or so inches high.
And when he assembles that and turns it, he glues the spaces right into there, right? There's no filler
Yes.
pieces that
Yeah.
come out afterward.
There's no filler pieces. He has a jig, which we videoed the demonstration, but he has a jig which didn't show up real well on the demonstration. But we're going to do some additional videos at his shop so that he can to show the jig that he made, which is quite ingenious. It amounts to an indexing wheel and a bar that comes out across the top, and then he actually goes like every 5 degrees around the circle, gluing those pieces in so they come out even.
Wow.
And Kai, we did record the meeting last night. Last Tuesday, Toby Bowder showed how he judges a piece of burl to get the best piece of it and to get the best looking shot of it. And he did quite a bit of, there was quite an interesting conversation going on that he was involved and people were, and we had to chalk out, we were chalking the sides of this several uncut pieces of burl and how he judges and how he decides which way to orient it, which way to move it.
Are you going to post that video on the Susquehanna site?
Yes, it will be on the
Okay, good.
Susquehanna YouTube channel.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you. Sounds interesting.
Yeah. Chalikian, John Chalikian, what do you have today?
I have a question. I've been reading David Ellsworth's Woodturning, in which he has a big shout out to you, John, in the acknowledgement for encouraging him to write this book. And it's a very good book. And my question, he talks about his Ellsworth grind. And so I use a Sorby Pro Edge for sharpening. And my question to the group is, what's the difference exactly with his Ellsworth grind compared to just a long grind on a bowl gouge? Does his have like a curve on the top edge, whereas my grinds come out straight on the side? The top edge. Does anybody familiar with that Ellsworth grind? And he has a special holder for sharpening.
I have the recollection of it being curved on that top edge, but I'm not sure. And it's a long grind. And I think some people call it the Irish grind.
John, I've been working, Doug Reeser here. First of all, John, when you say yours is just a straight grind, you mean you're just twisting your tool and grinding it on a single angle when you make the grind?
Well, my Pro Edge has a holder.
Okay.
That, for grinding bowl gouges. And typical that top edge along the long shoulder is across the top is straight. I didn't have a chance to bring one in from my shop for this, but
I've been doing a study, John, on grinding, and then what I've been doing is the mathematics and looking at the various shape of the angle as you move it back and forth. You're using an Ellsworth grind versus a straight grind versus a gouge and all that sort of thing. So there is some variation that you can generate, but they're all fundamentally doing the same thing, which is changing the sort of the angle of the approach for your tool. So if you have a 60 degree, let me just example, if you have your setup as a 60-degree angle straight on, by the time it gets round to the side, the actual grinding angle has changed from 60 degrees to a lot less than 60 degrees.
right.
So it goes more to a skew type of angle, like 20 or 30, depending how the angle's set up. It's a fascinating subject for me, but I've been trying to put together some slides from my engineering understanding, just because I like to look at the angles and stuff and see exactly what we're dealing with.
Are you gonna like do a presentation on that, make some drawings and
Yeah,
take
that's
pictures?
what I'm trying to do, John. I've been trying to do it because of just to get the idea of how holding your tool changes the angle of the actual blade. You know, so the approach to my idea is to say, if I take a skew with a 35 degree cut, and then move it from directly in front of move my hand from approaching the angle straight on versus sideways, how does that affect the angle of the blade itself when you're cutting? And I'm in the process of making a PowerPoint presentation for that.
Can I say
I
something?
don't have an Ellsworth sharpening jig, but I think what John is referring to is normally with something like a very grind jig, one's going to get a hollow ground tip as opposed to the Sorby system, which he has, which is using a flat piece of sandpaper is going to give you a flat edge on your tool. So that's one of the major differences. But what are the different angles? I couldn't answer that question.
And Bruce, to your point about that hollow grind on the tip, is that for me is how quickly you move your tool around. Because if you have regardless of whether it's a one-way or whoever's tool it is, you can get that view in the center if you're not fully aware, because it grinds a whole lot faster when it's straight on than when you're coming around the side. So you have to be, you can't just make a smooth cut. You have to watch the angle as you're cutting it off. So you have entirely under your control that whole the line that your tool makes. Anyway.
Hey, Doug.
More.
Doug, what in your work, look at the idea that, to me, the swept back part is just for shear scraping, basically, for me. You know, it's when I roll it over to do a shear scrape. I don't know how much that swept back affects regular chisel work across a piece.
The swept back, and that's one of the reasons I was looking at it, Jim, is because actually the swept back turns it from a more of a straight on 60-degree angle on the nose to say a 45, and now you're starting to look like it's like a combination of a gouge with a skew on the side of it because of the way you're holding it, which is why you get such a smooth cut on it when you're actually holding it as a smooth angle on the swept back. And again, whether to Bruce's comment, it really doesn't matter that there's variations between the one way and the one that Ellsworth promotes is great. I think what David Ellsworth did more than anything, I think John Kelsey referred to this before, is that David Ellsworth didn't invent a new grind. He just reintroduced the grind into more of our modern woodworking psyche. So we're all doing it. But
well, I remember back in the 70s with long and strong deep bowl gouges, which were straight across and about 55 degrees. As you used them, as I used them anyway, and other guys I knew back then, we started experimenting with bringing that wing back and bringing the wing back and getting a longer wing and seeing what it would do. There were no names for it or anything like that. And so we didn't know about Irish grind and nor David Ellsworth back in the time. But it seems to me that anybody was getting serious about turning wet wood on a lathe, big chunks, and who stumbled into those tools, which became available in the States around 1970, 74 maybe, you would pretty quickly start to experiment with the end of that tool, and that's what you would be doing.
Hey, Doug, the other thing I hope you address, or somebody can address, is where you put the leg on the background, how that affects that shape. I haven't had time to fool with that, but
I wish somebody would sort that out. All right, that's
Yeah.
a mystery. to me.
That's the purpose behind what I'm talking, what I was doing is to try and actually do it mathematically, and because it's for engineers, I'm not trying to say it's simple, but for me, it's a fairly straightforward mathematical question. And I was actually looking at that particular thing, Jim, to ask that question. And the real reason that started me off on this was I was trying to figure out why certain tools catch more than other tools. So I'm actually trying to look at the angle and how you approach it and what causes a catch, and how you can minimize that as well with the bowl grind versus a Ellsworth grind versus a skew versus all the other ones. So
Jim's point is very good, though. A slight change in that angle makes very big differences. I use a system called the Geiger system, as in Geiger counter, but not related. And he has a little jig that you set the exact angle of that piece for his system, which I think is probably the crux of it. And then he has another little piece that I think is a dead 60 degree that orients everything from it. But when you just use the pictures or whatever, it's amazing. If you're just off a little bit, it will change pretty dramatically the angles on your tool.
One thing too, Doug, and hopefully you'll address it or help explain it, is when you take the tool off the grinder, that's great. But when you go to the wood, the whole way you hold the tool on the wood, it doesn't really matter what the grind is off the grinder. It's the way the wood is coming to the steel. And I learned that from Raffin. And he says, well, he just sharpens by hand. And I've started doing that as well. And I don't care what the tool looks like now, but I spend a lot more time holding the edge of the tool on the wood. And the slightest little change makes a big difference. And especially with that swept back grind, you can lower the handle like almost right down, almost hitting the lathe. So the tool is standing almost straight up. And you can take a 1/2 inch cut off of a green log and the chips just fly. And if you move it a little bit, like you'd hold it in a conventional bowl gouge, you'd have a catch or it wouldn't cut. But the difference of changing the angle when the steel touches the wood. Hopefully you can talk a bit about that. But like getting the grind consistent off a grinder is great. But the more important thing is, what does the wood do when it touches the steel? That'll be.
Well, there's terminology for that in the wood technology textbooks. They talk about orthogonal cutting, and they've got a system of knowing how the cutter head or the cutting edge is impacting the wood grain, the direction of the grain, and there's language for it and definitions if you get into a wood technology textbook or a wood machining textbook.
Yeah, but most of us don't want to read that much. We just want to know.
No, I'm
somebody
talking
can tell
about
us or show us.
Yeah, but I mean, for what Doug's trying to do, there is language to be applied and definitions that make sense in terms of. And you're right, Bert. That's the crux of it, is how the tool edge meets the wood. Totally.
And I learned the most about my bowl gouges by practicing with my skew on. I watched Steve Jones from the UK do some work with a skew, and the way he doesn't explain much. He just shows how this tool cuts the wood. Well, if you take that kind of mentality and apply it to a bowl gouge and think about the angles that you're touching, that's when I found it really, really helped me. So everybody hates the skew, but I'll tell you, once you learn how to handle a skew, all the other tools really, really become a lot of fun.
They fall into line from that. That's for sure. Yeah. Anybody else on this? It's an eternal topic, and we come back to it all the time. We got a couple of minutes here if anybody wants to expound on their experience.
John, can I just give a quick review on the book, on Ellsworth's book?
Go for it.
It's called Ellsworth Woodturning, and I first heard about this. I was at a demonstration, and the fellow doing the demo was from the Bucks County Woodturners, and he said that this was a book for beginners. And I totally disagree with that. This is a good second book. First book is Raffin's Wood Turning. This one just deals with bowl turning, and he gives spends a lot of time talking about body mechanics. That's very interesting, and philosophies on turning and tool angles and body mechanics. So it's a good second book. Raffin's the first book for a beginner, and this is a good second book. And even for people that have a lot of experience, it's a very good book. And from when we had David on the coffee hour, you know, he's a deep thinker. His work is absolutely beautiful and incredible. And he talks about making tools for the hollowing. And so he focuses on, one part is hollowing, but a lot on tool control and angles and you know, how you're holding the tool. And tremendous. I haven't read anybody that spends as much time on the body mechanics who's real concerned about that, but I highly recommend it. Very good book. That's it. Thank you.
I had the privilege of being at his workshop about 3 weeks ago for 3 days. And everything in his book, I'm reading his book now. His book is a great follow-up. He definitely encourages grinding with a slight convex on that gouge. And I know that because several times as I grinded, he would walk over and remind me not to have a straight edge as grounded. But a great 3 days, if you ever have a chance to go to one of his workshops. It's incredible, not just for what he teaches you, but also you spend about an hour at lunchtime just talking about the history of turning in the last 30 to 40 years and stuff. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's a great experience for anybody who can get on the list. And I think Ziegler's on the list to go down there this fall. Thank you, Tim. When did you go?
I'm going to say about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, maybe at the most, for our Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, you're just back.
I'm just back a few weeks.
Wow. Did you take a lot of pictures? You want to show us them some week?
I didn't take too many pictures. Most of the pictures I took were of gouge positions, so that I would help remember, you know, exactly how to hold the gouge properly. He definitely is into. I had never seen. Of course, I'm only about a 2-year turner. The ends, the back handle edges of his handles are all off-centered turns slightly. So it's so much easier to hold and so much more relaxing to hold your gouge instead of having a very slick, round handle the way Sorby and most of the other ones have. Of course, he makes all his own handles, but and we did some hollowing. I could put together. I don't think I have too many pictures.
Bring together what you have in a week or two. Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah.
Okay. I will tell one quick story. We talked about a Buckfelder piece that somebody had given him, somebody else that's famous, whose name I don't remember without looking. But he had it down on a shelf in his garage just to protect it so it didn't, so the red didn't fade. So I'll see what I have and I can put something together maybe.
Okay. And I'm going to wrap this up now with 2 announcements I should have made at the beginning. This coming Saturday, 9 to noon, is the Lancaster Woodturners open shop at above Kaufman Kitchens in New Holland. Anybody who's a club member or wants to be a visitor or a guest is welcome to attend. There's 4 lathes going and two grinding setups, and usually about a dozen people teaching, showing each other stuff, drinking coffee and yakety yak. The other thing this weekend on Friday and Saturday in Perkiomenville is the Conshohocken Folk Festival. I went there last year and made a video of David Sloan, who's usually on this screen, working his treadle lathe for the fans. And there was another guy with a spring pole lathe. And there were a whole lot of other 18th, 17th, and 18th century woodcraft people demonstrating, along with a lot of other crafts. So I'm going to go back this Saturday and maybe shoot some more video. And if anybody feels like a field trip, it's an annual event that is totally worth looking up and going to some year. It's just a marvelous, low-key, non-commercial folk festival sort of thing. These guys are really serious about replicating the ancient crafts and showing how the traditional tools are used, and talking to you all about it for as long as you want to hang around. I watched them boring wooden water pipes. I never saw that before. So it's a very interesting thing.
What's the name of that again, John?
Conshohocken Folk Festival in Perkiomenville, PA.
It's a German word, I think, isn't it? I think it's German. So.
I think it's the name of the valley where they settled. It's the part of Perkiomenville area where they first settled.
Goshenhoppen, John. G-O-S-H. Goshenhoppen. That's what it is.
He's got it right. G-O-S-H.
Right.
H-O-P-P-E-N Folk Festival.
By the way, John, next week, make sure you start. You got cheated out again this week, so.
I was going to talk about turning long spindles for making canes. I was at my daughter's wedding this weekend, and I left my best cane at somebody's house, and so they'll bring it back sometime. But meanwhile, I got to make another one, so I'm back to turning 30-inch long spindles and discovering ever more pitfalls of doing it, because I don't like those steady rests. I'm using my hand and a gouge and a skew, and it's kind of fun. Very interesting exercise. Anyhow, we'll see you all next week. Maybe I'll talk about it then.
Wood shop. Thank God